and thanks so much to everyone for joining us today. Really looking forward to talking about a really hot topic of content when it comes to B2B, specifically when you're using display and social ads. So before we dive into the content, just a few notes on how you can engage with us during this event. If you do have a question, please do submit it in the Q&A box. We have reserved about 15 minutes at the end of today's session to answer any questions, so send them along when you have them. And please do join the conversation on Twitter using the hashtag Succeed2015. And finally, you can follow us for more using the handle you see here, LinkedIn Marketing. So what are we going to be talking about today? I think whenever we have a discussion around anything in B2B marketing, it's often useful to start with the B2B buyer's journey, simply because all of our marketing approaches really revolve around where our prospects are in the journey and what they need. And on that note, before you even start developing any content, you really need to understand what your prospects' needs are. And so we'll talk about sort of different options for that. And that'll lead us nicely into a discussion of channels. So when it comes to content, it's just as important to consider your channels for distribution, right? And so we'll talk about why display and social ads make a ton of sense for B2B marketers and what we mean by what we call a full funnel marketing approach. And then I'll hand things off to Deanna at that point, who's going to walk through some real world examples of what works for display and social. And we'll close with a short Q&A. So the B2B buyer's journey, what does it look like today? A lot of us who have been doing B2B marketing for a while are familiar with the fact that compared to our B2C counterparts, we're dealing with an often very lengthy and complex buyer's journey. And Forrester actually did a survey in which they found that most prospects could be up to 90% through the buying cycle before they ever raise their hand to talk to sales. And so this leaves sales with only 10% of the time to actually engage in a live conversation with prospects, right? So it's up to marketers to really fill this gap, right? But how are we going to fill this gap? The only way we can fill the gap is through really relevant B2B content that's distributed via the right and the most effective channels. But great content actually doesn't start at the development of content. Great content actually starts with knowing and understanding who your audience is. And so we need to first realize that our prospects have very different needs. And you really need to sort of understand your prospects in two dimensions. The first is, who are they in terms of their demographic profile? And because we're B2B marketers, we're most interested in business demographic segments, right? So you're going to want to consider segments such as title, industry, job function, level of seniority. These sort of segments are going to enable you to target the right people when it comes to your different marketing campaigns. The second thing you need to understand about your prospects is, what are they doing online? And the reason for this is going to be a strong indicator of what their buyer intent is. And so let me give a couple of examples here. Let's say you have two groups of people that are coming to your website. The first group of people come to your homepage and then they leave without converting. So not very interested or sales ready at this point in time, but they did visit your site. The second group of people are people who come to your homepage, but then they continue deeper down into your site, maybe visiting your product pages, your pricing pages, maybe even your demo page or case study page, pages that are very sort of high value, right? Pages that would potentially indicate a high level of sales readiness. So you have two very different groups of people here with very different content needs. And you want to be able to, first of all, acknowledge these different needs and then develop the content that's going to speak to these needs. So if you just remember, before you develop any sort of content, know these two key things when it comes to your targeting business professionals, and you'll be one step closer to knowing what their needs are in the buyer's journey. Okay, so now let's talk about mapping content to the funnel. I feel like the funnel is something, a framework that we're all very familiar with and is very useful when thinking about the sales process, but also when sort of thinking about where you may need to sort of direct your content. So let's take, for example, the top of the funnel. When you have prospects that are at the top of the funnel, what are they thinking about? Some of the questions that could be going on in their heads are: do I have a business challenge? For people who are, very early in the buying process, who aren't even aware that you could solve their business challenge. Who can solve my challenge? All right, so these people acknowledge the fact that they are looking for a solution, but are now unsure of actually who plays in the space, which vendors might appeal to them. And then finally, what should I be looking for in the solution? All of these questions present a really great opportunity for you to build your brand. Top funnel buyers give you the opportunity to increase your brand awareness, reach the most people that you can with your content, and begin to educate them about what you can provide. So what does top funnel content look like? In most cases, top funnel content is ungated, meaning you don't want to put a form in front of it. And the reason is that you really want to strive to have your top funnel content to be educational, to provide thought leadership, and to encourage sharing with others, right? So your blog is a great way to promote your thought leadership. Really use it as a podium for thought leadership for your company, to attract new potential audiences. Infographics work great because they're sort of a fun, engaging way to express a certain best practice or provide certain insights or data on a challenge that you sort of meet with your solution. And then videos also make great sort of ungated educational content, right? And it's important to call out here. I know that for a lot of B2B marketers, we're really sort of focused on leads. But in the case of top funnel content, you want to hold yourself back a little bit and just think like, my goal at the top of the funnel is really to fill the funnel with as many people as I can for my target audience. So I'm going to wait until later in the process to actually be concerned about driving leads. Okay, so what happens when people move to the middle of the funnel? Their content needs are going to change here because the questions that they're asking are going to change as well. So at this point in time, people are probably already familiar with the brands that are playing in the space, and they're really ready to start learning about the specific product or service. They also want to know, how does your product compare to other products in the space? And finally, they're starting to wonder, are there other companies like mine that have used the same solution? So this gives you the opportunity to really sort of begin talking about your product, begin talking about some of the best practices in your space, and begin to gate that great valuable content, right? So this is where you sort of want to begin to drive some leads around it. And so some examples of content pieces that work great here are ebooks, of course. So use the ebooks as an opportunity to sort of showcase your knowledge of your industry and space. Webinars like the one you're on today are a great way to sort of, answer questions in real time, really get to the heart of the matter of what your product or service offers. Demos. So I think at this point in the time, in the middle of the funnel, you shouldn't be afraid to sort of start really diving into the value of your product. I think in many cases, you'll be surprised about the amount of people who are actually doing a ton of self-education on their own, so that by the time they actually raise their hand for a demo, they want to actually, hear about your product. They're not sort of put off by the fact that you want to talk about features and capabilities. So do sort of really make a concerted effort at the middle of the funnel to incorporate more product-oriented content. And then finally, case studies. I can't stress enough the importance of case studies at the middle of the funnel and, as we'll see, at the bottom of the funnel. If you have the opportunity to really sort of dedicate a resource to just sort of going after and drafting up case studies, it'll be well worth your while. Okay, bottom of the funnel. When people are at the bottom of the funnel, this is where the rubber meets the road, right? People want to know, how much is this going to cost me? Do I need to get buy-in from others at my company? And finally, again, I am at the point where I really need customer references to make this decision. So at the bottom of the funnel, your content is going to be deal closing content. So content pieces that work right here are evaluation guides, ROI calculators. If you are in sort of a free trial model, definitely bring those in the bottom of the funnel. And then again, case studies are so important at the bottom of the funnel to really sort of validate and showcase how people have been using your solution. Okay, so we've talked about the content piece. Now I'd like to shift a little bit to talk about channels, and I'm really going to sort of focus on the idea of full funnel marketing here. So what do we as B2B marketers have? I think we actually have a bit of what I'm going to call a direct response addiction. And what I mean by this is that we're so sort of used to operating in a world governed by leads and conversions that we tend to sort of overfish in the bottom of the funnel. And so we focus a ton of our effort on channels such as search and email. And with good reason, right? We've been using these channels for a long time now. And we know, how to use them, how to measure success with them. The problem is that we always are going to only reach a very limited amount of people. So in the case of search, you're only reaching people who are actively searching for a solution today. And then similarly with email, you're only reaching a finite number of people in your internal database or a limited number of email lists that you may rent externally, right? And so if you continue to invest only in bottom funnel channels such as these, you're never going to scale. And if you have increasingly demanding pipeline needs, this is going to be problematic down the road. So this is where I'd like to sort of talk about the value of display and social ads. And the reason is display and social ads are really unique because they can essentially impact every stage of the buyer's journey. So let's start at the top of the funnel. Why do display and social ads work so well? Well, they enable you to get in front of pretty much everyone in your target audience. You don't need to know who they are. You don't need their email address. All you want to do at the top of the funnel is really reach as many people as you can and start to get your brand in front of them. Because even if they're not ready to buy today, they will be down the road. And because you have display and market, it's very likely that they're going to keep your brand top of mind when the time comes versus your competitor. As people move down the funnel, though, display and social are still very influential. So today you have, and here's sort of a daunting, scary stat for you all. On average, 95% of the people, so the anonymous website visitors that are coming to your website aren't converting. So only 5% of people really convert on your site at any time. And it's sort of scary to think that 95% of these people are just leaving and you're never sort of keeping your brand in front of them ever again. If you have display and social intact, you can essentially ensure that you're keeping your brand top of mind with those people who have come to your site previously. And not only that, you can sort of nurture them in a way with your display ads, much as you would with email, in a very sequenced way. So, let's take that group of homepage users that I talked about earlier. The homepage users who come to your site and leave, you can serve them a set of creative that has, a very sort of basic white paper explaining best practices in your industry. But for the people who have gone further into your site and, say, visit a specific product page, you can actually serve them a different set of ads, right? And then continue to serve them ads over time that are optimized based on their level of engagement. So this is an example of how display and social really adds to your efforts to nurture throughout the funnel. And then finally, let's talk about how you can use display and social at the bottom of the funnel. So let's go back to your email database. Think about how much investment you've made building your database, building the number of contacts, right? The sad thing is that on average, when it comes to B2B emails, our open rates never really exceed 20%. And if you flip that around, that means that more than 80% of your prospects are never opening your emails. So what can you do? With display and social ads, you can actually have the ability to sync your display and social ads with your emails. So let's say you promote a specific white paper that you have through an email, and someone doesn't convert via the email. Well, you can rest easy because you can serve them the same ad for that same offer that they didn't convert on via email. You can show them that ad via display ad and basically increase your chances for a conversion, right? So this is a sort of the example of why display and social play so well at the bottom of the funnel. Okay, before I hand things over to Deanna, I just want to run through sort of a quick success story about what full funnel marketing looks like in the real world. So there's a company called My Corporation. My Corporation specializes in helping SMBs basically creating businesses, right? Becoming an LLC or a corporation. So they took their display ad approach in a very sort of tiered full funnel marketing way. So their top funnel objective was they wanted to reach their target audience of SMBs at scale. And how did they do this? They basically incorporated broadly targeted display offering ungated content. So again, we bring in that idea of when you're at the top of the funnel, don't gate your content. You want to just sort of educate people and help them to learn more. And as you can see from the ad creative here, that's exactly what My Corporation did, right? They knew that they just wanted to get their brand in front of SMBs. They didn't necessarily want to drive leads at this point. So this is just their way of sort of driving the most people that they can into the top of their funnel. But when people continue to engage on the My Corporation website, they wanted to change their approach a little bit, right? These are people that were somewhat engaged, right? So now their objective changes. It's more of a mid-funnel objective in which they're wanting to educate, nurture, and build these relationships. So how does their content and their display change? As you can see, they're going to base their display creative on not only demographic profile, but where do these people go on their site? So here's an example of display ad creative that was directed towards a group of people that were on their product or service page. They knew that these people were a little more interested than people that just sort of hit their homepage. So they thought, why not offer something a little stronger of an offer? Let's offer a free consultation. So now this is where My Corporation is going to start to drive some leads. All right. And then when it finally came to the bottom of the funnel and they were dealing with very super engaged users, their goal was to really, let's get these users to convert, let's get them started with the product. And as you can see here, the tactic is basically incorporating a very product-oriented offer with a clear call to action. They want to basically get these people started because they're dealing with a group of people that have shown through their engagement with the My Corporation website that they are highly interested and highly potential customers. So let's just take a look at this in terms of how it looks as a full funnel approach, right? So they essentially use display and social ads to drive results from the top to the bottom. As you can see from the ad creative, it grows increasingly stronger, right? You're starting at the top of the funnel, which is learning more, but then you offer a free consultation, and then finally you really sort of want to encourage people to get started. And as you can see here, the My Corporation really started out with basically driving in the very beginning more than 4,000 new website visitors from their display ads. And as B2B marketers, we tend to not think, or it's very difficult to sort of think beyond leads. But when you're using display and social ads, it is important to think about the people that you're driving to your site because that's really where it begins, right? It doesn't make sense to measure leads at the top of the funnel. What you want to know is, am I driving people, not just any people, but people in my target audience from my display ads? And then, as you can see, My Corporation eventually achieved a 140% ROI, which was, of course, a fantastic result for them. So now I'm going to pass the controls off to Deanna, and she's going to be talking about, examples, real-world examples of how to reach the right people with social media.
Great. Thank you, Jen. So hi, everyone. My name is Deanna Lazzaroni, and I help lead our global content marketing and oversee social media strategy here at LinkedIn. And really, I'm focused on helping marketers like yourself take best advantage of the opportunities that LinkedIn offers to achieve your marketing objectives and really to reach the people that matter most to your business. What my team is focused on here at LinkedIn is creating this full funnel marketing content that Jen spoke to you a bit about. And so I'm excited today to dive a little bit more into how people are using social media specifically to achieve their goals on LinkedIn. One thing that we talk a lot about here at LinkedIn is the fact that we like to drink our own champagne. So we do use our own products to market our solutions, and it's very integral to our marketing strategy. So today I'm going to share a little bit of best practices, kind of an insider's look at what we do from a marketing perspective on our platform. So let's dive into it. Jen shared a little bit about the buyer's journey and examples of display ads and how they can work harder for you at each stage of this journey. And I'm here to talk to you a bit about the social channels so that you can understand how people are using the platform to reach those audiences that do matter most, and how these B2B brands are effectively reaching their audiences at each stage of the funnel. The key really to success is relevancy. As you think about the content that you've seen in your LinkedIn feed lately, it's probably updates from people in your network, possibly even a few updates from brands. These brands are possibly ones that you're already following on LinkedIn, maybe because you like their company culture, you possibly can see yourself working there one day, or maybe you just enjoy their thought leadership content that they publish from time to time on the platform. But there's also probably brands who you are not yet following on LinkedIn whose updates you've seen in your feed. These updates are called sponsored updates. Sponsored updates provide a native advertising solution to brands looking to reach professionals in the LinkedIn feed, where they're investing time every day consuming content that helps them really be great at what they do. In fact, today, professionals on LinkedIn are actually spending 7 times the amount of time with content on LinkedIn versus engaging in job-related activity. And they're doing this across all devices, so desktop, tablet, and mobile. We've actually seen mobile usage continue to climb, with over 45% of total traffic on LinkedIn now coming from mobile. And the number is even higher specifically for sponsored updates. So we actually have seen 70% of clicks for sponsored updates coming from mobile. Since launching our sponsored updates product in July 2013, we've seen B2B brands leveraging this social marketing product to reach their audiences on LinkedIn with great success, driving awareness, shaping perceptions, and ultimately driving lead conversion. So let's dive a little bit into the specifics of how they are doing this. I wanted to start with a story of success from Adobe. Adobe has goals of increasing awareness and preference with marketing decision makers. So they look to sponsored updates to deliver relevant content to this influential audience. Here's an example of an update that Adobe ran as part of their sponsored updates campaign. As a result of their efforts on LinkedIn, Adobe saw significant branding results. Specifically, they saw that after exposure to the sponsored updates, the marketing decision makers in their target audience were 50% more likely to agree that Adobe is shaping the future of digital marketing, and 79% were more likely to agree that Adobe can help them optimize their media spend. So Adobe was pretty happy with these results. Here is a direct quote from Maria Proveromo saying that not only did sponsored updates allow the company to reach the right audience on the right channel, but it ultimately helped move the needle on a primary objective for the company, to inform and educate marketers that Adobe is an industry leader in providing digital marketing solutions. So in the case of Adobe, this top funnel content really helped shape perceptions about the company with key audiences that they may not have otherwise been able to reach, and do so in a relevant and impactful way. But let's get more into some of that bottle funnel content that Jen was talking about. This next success story features a campaign from HubSpot with the goal of converting quality leads. To achieve their conversion goal, HubSpot decided to promote gated content offers through sponsored updates. Here you can see 2 examples of content offers that they promoted on LinkedIn. As a result of their efforts, HubSpot saw that LinkedIn delivered 400% more leads within their target audience than lead generation efforts on any other platform during the campaign. And most importantly, the leads were of higher quality, which is important when you're thinking about how marketing can help shorten the sales cycle. Mike Volpe, who is the CMO at HubSpot, shares how LinkedIn sponsored updates really made sense because it's the perfect marriage between LinkedIn's professional audience and HubSpot's promotional content. And he loves how sponsored updates don't just bring him leads, they bring him quality leads in their B2B market at a cost per lead that he's pretty happy with. So we've seen these great examples of success, but what are these sponsored updates actually doing that is making them so successful? I thought I would break down just a few best practices using these examples as a guide for you. One of the most important best practices from a content marketing perspective overall, and certainly as it relates to social media content, is offering up something of value to your audience. Social media is not the place to make the hard sell. Instead, I recommend focusing your content efforts on providing value in the feed. Use a CTA in your update that drives people to click, and really let your landing page do the heavy converting. Here in this HubSpot example, we see that they've done a great job providing value by positioning how they want to help ease the pain of many marketers, offering a free template to create infographics and PowerPoint. By answering a question in the body of the copy, they showcase how they're solving for that problem and entice the reader to go download the solution. Keeping a conversational tone on social media is also equally important to success. Take a look at a second example from HubSpot. The company gets personal by calling you in the copy and creates a sense of urgency with the reader, again, wanting to be helpful. In this case, they're helping to ensure that the reader does not get left behind and are prepared for the major shifts ahead in social media. Also take note of the shortness of this copy. For sponsored updates, an image, title, and meta description will automatically pull in when you share an update on LinkedIn, so you don't really need to add much text to the share description. Providing a bit of context and personalizing this to your audience is really key, and I recommend trying to keep it under 140 characters. We've seen that that's somewhat of a sweet spot for sharing content on LinkedIn, especially as we think about keeping things snackable for mobile consumption. And finally, it's a good idea to be direct in your copy to point your audience towards the action you want them to take. So including a clear call to action is key. You can also use compelling rich media to stand out more in the feed, as Adobe has done here. Again, when you share a link on LinkedIn, it will automatically pull in an image thumbnail, but you can also upload a larger image to grab attention. This is especially great if you're aiming to drive awareness and branding objectives. And we've seen many brands who leverage rich media see stronger engagement with their content as a result. Of course, these are just a few examples, but there are many more stories and resources out there to help you. For those of you who are interested in additional case studies, best practices, and tips to drive success with your LinkedIn marketing, here are just a few resources that I would, of course, recommend checking out. One is our Case Study Hub. So here you can find many success stories with LinkedIn marketing products, including sponsored updates, in-mail, display, as well as custom API solutions. The direct URL you can see here is lnkd.in/marketing case studies, and you can also get there easily from our marketing website. Secondly, if you're not already a subscriber, I obviously invite you to subscribe to our LinkedIn Marketing Solutions blog, where we publish daily articles to help marketers succeed. We have a section specifically dedicated to success stories, so there we're sharing best practices and tips for products like sponsored updates, and I invite you to check out those stories that we publish regularly. If this URL that's shown on the screen is too long for you to remember, you can easily navigate from the blog homepage by just selecting topics and then clicking over to our LinkedIn sponsored updates section. We actually just today, I'll let you know, we published a new case study for a business school using sponsored updates. So if you're an education marketer out there, I'd highly recommend checking out that story. You can also find more learnings from the top sponsored updates of 2014, which we published just prior to the holidays, as well as a helpful ebook in which we rounded up 6 success stories with sponsored updates, the visual of which you can see here. So all of those can be found on our blog and website, and plenty of resources for you to check out to see what brands are doing. I know I personally love getting my hands on new success stories and best practices that I can use. So if you're hungry for more, please go check those out. But of course, before I turn things back over to Jen to recap today, I did want to leave you with a quick 5-step checklist that you can immediately start using to be successful as you go back and think about launching sponsored updates campaigns on LinkedIn? It really all starts with creating great content, as Jen spoke to earlier, crafting that to your professional audience, and really keeping in mind how you can help your audience succeed with your content. We recommend starting by promoting your content organically by publishing as a regular update on your LinkedIn company page. You can do this for free, so it's easy to get started today. And I encourage you to watch and see how your updates perform organically. One thing that we do here from a LinkedIn marketing perspective is monitor the engagement rate. So I'll be looking to see how updates perform, and usually if something is above a 1% engagement rate, I know that's doing well. So I'll typically have our team put paid support behind that content, making sure that it reaches the right audience. This is obviously the next step in the checklist, amplify to the right people via sponsored updates. As a bonus, for those of you who like to tinker and test like I do, we actually launched a new feature called Direct Sponsored Content in Q3 of last year. Direct Sponsored Content essentially allows you to sponsor an update directly to a specific audience without it first needing to appear on your company page. This comes in handy for marketers who want to A/B test content before they can put greater support behind it. We do offer some analytics to help you track the progress of your campaigns. So if you're an admin of your company page, right from the dashboard, you can see specific updates, how they're performing in terms of engagement, and understand what types of content are resonating best. We do know that marketers a lot of times want to have one central dashboard, one place to kind of look at all the campaigns they're running across a various number of platforms socially. So we work with a number of partners to help you not only run your campaigns, but track and optimize performance as well. AdStage, Shift, and Salesforce are just a couple of those partners that you can work with. And lastly, as you do test and launch more campaigns, keep tabs on what's working and what's not. One of the great things about digital and social marketing is the ability to gather data and leverage that data to inform better decisions. So as you learn what works, repeat it, and obviously share your success stories with us because we'd love to hear them. So I will now turn it over to Jen to recap the webinar for you.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Deanna. So before we dive into the Q&A, just a few key takeaways from today's presentation. So before you write or develop any sort of content, remember, you need to first consider who you're going to be speaking to, right? Who is your audience in terms of a business demographic profile? Where are they in your buying process? And what are they doing online? What are their interests, right? Once you take this into consideration, consider using a real full funnel approach to your content mix. Use the funnel as a useful framework, not only to represent the buyer's process, but to figure out where you may need content in order to address where users are in their purchase decision. And, content, of course, is no good without a distribution channel, right? So your channels matter too. And again, bring in that idea of the full funnel approach. Think about how am I going to drive more leads with my content at the bottom of the funnel? The first thing I need to do is actually think about the top of the funnel, right? So don't be afraid to try new channels, go beyond search and email, try channels like display and social ads to really increase your reach and increase the number of people in your target audience that you're driving in to your sales pipeline. And then finally, remember, develop content that actually delivers value, right? The great point that Deanna brought up, and you really want to be able to build that trust and that sense of thought leadership with your prospects by giving them something valuable. And the people that you are talking to, they are people, not just sort of blanket audiences, right? They are people. Remember that. So be as relevant and as personal as you can to really make it worth their while. So let's dive into the questions that we've gotten. Thank you so much to everyone who's been submitting them throughout the presentation. And let's see, let's start out with a question about the section I discussed on display ads. When you talk about nurturing with display ads, are you actually talking about retargeting? Fantastic question. I'm actually not talking about retargeting. Although you may be able to best understand it within sort of that concept. So retargeting has definitely been a display advertising technique that has been around for quite a while. And it's most often used and most effective in actually like B2C transactions. So if you think about adding something to your shopping cart, and then Amazon or Zappos sort of serves display ads to you as you surf the web with those items in your shopping cart, you are probably likely to either buy them or not buy them, which is to say that the sales cycle with a B2C transaction is pretty short, right? So retargeting actually doesn't work that well in the B2B sales cycle, simply because we're dealing, again, with a very sort of longer, complex sales cycle. What you can do now is actually, instead of just plain old retargeting, use very targeted nurturing when it comes to display and social ads. So again, serving them ads based on who they are from a business demographic profile perspective and what they've done on your site. And nurturing with display ads is quite similar to what you would think of when you think of email nurturing, except this time you're using a different channel. You can actually sequence display ads with different B2B content offers and switch the ads out based on levels of engagement and continuously optimize them over time. So to hope that answers your question, nurturing is quite different from retargeting. Okay, I will take, let's see, one of these content-related questions. Deanna, I think you and I can both answer this one. If you were a B2B content marketer starting out, what are the 3 most important points you would recommend having them remember? Let's see. This is a hard question, but I think so. I'm gonna also bring up, number 1 for me would be, again, think about your audience. So before you start writing anything, you need to know what you're writing about, who you're writing for, right? The second thing for me would be to actually perform what I call a content audit. So just basically see what sort of content you have in play right now, right? And a useful way to think of an audit is, again, take that sort of B2B funnel and map the sorts of content that you have to the funnel. So let's say you have 5 different ebooks or white papers, but you don't have any case studies, right? So you would probably want to focus your efforts on case studies. So that's sort of like a simplified way of sort of prioritizing which content to develop. And then the third thing I think I would say would be to figure out how you're going to measure success with your content, right? And this is often going to depend on, again, where you want to make an impact along the funnel. Maybe you just want to drive, new visitors to your site. Maybe you want to generate leads. Whatever it is, it's helpful to sort of figure out how you're going to measure success with your content before you even start developing it. Deanna, do you want to sort of talk about the 3 most important things that you think you would recommend?
Yeah, Jen, I think your suggestions were spot on. Just a couple of things I would add to that. From an audience perspective, I think it's really important to do your research and understand the question that your audience is asking. So from a B2B perspective, there's a lot of opportunity to serve up different answers based on what people are searching for. And obviously you want to be the best answer out there. So when you're thinking about creating content, if you understand the questions that your audience is already out there asking about solutions or parts of the industry that you do provide, unique perspective on, you can serve up content to answer that question for them. It kind of goes back to the, be the most helpful, deliver value with your content. So I think understanding and doing your research about what your audience is already out there asking for can help inform your content strategy. And then secondly, as you're thinking about the different pieces of content, as Jen mentioned with your audit, think about how you can take existing content or new content you're creating and slice it into other pieces. So one very key strategy that we deploy here at LinkedIn is kind of creating what we call big rock pieces of content. So that may be an ebook, a white paper, something that offers a lot of value to the member. And usually it's something that we gate. But we want to have a lot of pieces that are ungated, kind of more of that top funnel content. So we might create infographics, videos, blog posts, things that can kind of all link back to the bigger piece. and that can offer a lot more value to your audience as you're nurturing them through the funnel. So as you think about the main campaigns, those big broad pieces of content that you're super excited to be delivering in your marketing plan, think about all the offshoots of that one piece of content that you can use to drive people back to it. You can get a lot of value out of just one piece of content. And then, Jen, I think with the measurement, it's super key to just keep in mind the overarching goals that you're trying to achieve for your company. I think that a lot of marketers kind of lose sight of that as they kind of get into the weeds of their marketing execution. So keeping in mind, how are you laddering this back up to your organization's goals, and what are, as Jen mentioned, those metrics that can help you deliver those objectives.
Awesome, thanks. Let's see, let's take this next question specific to a type of content. Is it unwise to introduce ROI calculators at the top of the funnel as thought leadership content? I feel pretty strongly that ROI calculators are best at the bottom of the funnel, simply because, again, it's sort of a very deep, intense topic you're talking about, right? Like calculating ROI right off the bat. So I would either, keep them at the bottom of the funnel, but maybe test and introduce them at the middle of the funnel. But for top funnel content, I would, again, try and lean towards content that you don't need to gate, content that's pretty educational, pretty high level, and then save sort of the more low level, deeper offers that you have for either the middle or the bottom. But it's always useful to test. Okay, let's see. Another question around case or content type. So, would you recommend case studies be organized separate from a blog, or can they be within the same area of a website? So I can comment on this first. I think usually the case studies are separate from the blog in terms of like an actual case study or success story page. It's pretty useful to sort of be able to measure the value of your case studies on their own webpage. But having said that, I know that it's often a very effective approach to actually feature case studies on your blog. So that might be a way to combine the two efforts. And Deanna, you probably have a lot of insight around this, given that you do manage the Marketing Solutions blog. Do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. So I can give you all a little insider look into how we kind of manage our case studies here. We do publish them on our website, so if you go check out that page, you can see a variety of different PDF case studies and video case studies that are up on our site. And we do want to get the most value out of that case study. So as Jen mentioned, using the blog to amplify that story is definitely a tactic that we deploy here at LinkedIn. So usually when we have a case study that's been completed, we'll publish that on the blog, and it can be in a variety of different forms. Sometimes we'll do a Q&A with the client who's featured in those success stories. Sometimes we'll pull out, key insights from that content and use it as a setup to the full story. Video is obviously a really great way to engage people in the emotional storytelling aspects that come along with case studies. So if you do have the resources available to do video, I definitely recommend exploring that. And then additionally, outside of the blog, you want to make sure that people are finding their way to that case study, if it's on the blog or on your website page. So using social to promote it across LinkedIn, across Twitter, wherever your audience is engaging with content that they're looking for. And then additionally, email and InMail can be great ways to serve up messaging to your audience at the right time.
Great. Perfect advice from the person who manages the blog herself. So let's see. Okay, there's a question on sort of visibility and basically LinkedIn audience. So do you recommend publishing on LinkedIn versus promoting the content we've published on our site? Why? What's the difference in terms of visibility? I will try to answer this and hope I'm understanding the question correctly. I think you definitely want to publish on LinkedIn simply because of just the vast premium audience that you have access to more than 330 million business professionals, right? And you definitely want to sort of publish things that are on your own site as well, in addition, right, to gain greater visibility for that. Deanna, would you agree with that?
Yeah, and I think I'll kind of just add to it. I've seen a lot of companies kind of cross-promote their efforts. So if you are publishing, let's say you have a content hub on your site, you're publishing content there pretty regularly, you might then also amplify that content by publishing it on LinkedIn, say, from one of your business executives or leaders in the organization who author the original content. I think that's one really great way to get it out there and also kind of drive some thought leadership for not only the individual who's publishing the content, but for your larger brand as well. So thinking about how you can amplify content that's already out there. And then secondly, publish original content on LinkedIn. Like I mentioned, your executives as well as the employees of your organization have a lot of experience to bring to the table. So if you can arm them with the right insights and tools to publish content, it can do a lot to further promote thought leadership for your brand. So I definitely encourage you to kind of look into how can you kind of create unique opportunities to publish content on LinkedIn and then amplify it across your various channels.
Perfect. Okay, let's take two more questions since we're coming up on the top of the hour. The next question is, how do you figure out which segments you want to target with your ads? And I can try and speak to that one first. I think it has a lot to do with thinking about who your ideal prospect is, right? For a lot of people, they already have thinking around B2B buyer personas documented already. And if you are in this bucket of people, that's fantastic. And you can actually sort of just think about your targeting in terms of who your personas are. So think about what their title is, the job function, their seniority, things like that. That will definitely lead you down the right path. Deanna, do you have any other sort of thoughts on targeting your ads, specifically with sponsored updates?
Yeah, so with sponsored updates, there's a lot of different targeting criteria that you can use to reach the right audiences on LinkedIn. I'm going to try to remember all of them off the top of my head, but I know from, just thinking about what people have on their LinkedIn profiles, you can target by location, by company, by the job title or function or seniority level, the actual company size, as well as the company name itself or industry. And then if you think about, other aspects of their profile, so maybe it's the school that they went to or the degree or field of study, if you're an education marketer, the skills that they have, the LinkedIn groups that they're in, there's a lot of different opportunities to, think about those different personas and use targeting on LinkedIn to reach that audience. One tip that I would just recommend is we kind of do this for our own marketing purposes. We'll usually start with somewhat of a broader audience. So, for example, if we're thinking about reaching marketing decision makers, we may target by marketing function or media and communications function. But then once we see how content is out there performing, we might see that certain titles of an organization are more so engaging with the content. So we may further target based on those audiences that are really clicking and engaging and converting with the content, just because we're able to get some more of that data on who are these people and make sure that we're serving up more relevant content to them. So start broad, and then you can kind of A/B test and figure out what's working and continue to refine from there.
And actually, that's a perfect segue into our last question. So, Deanna, do you want to sort of talk about what an example or what you've seen of a good A/B test within the realm of direct sponsored content?
Yeah, absolutely. So with direct sponsored content, there's a lot of different aspects of your content that you can essentially test, as well as, just targeting itself. So you can find different audiences. Maybe you're trying to reach more of a senior level, so you want to target by C-suite, but you also want to reach more the practitioner level. So you want to target a different audience and see how that performs. That's obviously a test you can set up and see, of those audiences, who's engaging more with your content. Additionally, from a creative perspective, there's a couple of different, as I mentioned, aspects of the content. So your image, for example, when you publish something onto LinkedIn, it automatically will pull in a thumbnail image, but you can customize that if you'd like. So if you want to upload an image of an individual, for example, we've actually seen that images of people perform a lot stronger than just an image of, let's say, a title or some sort of book itself. When you put a person behind the content, people just seem to connect more with it, especially if it's kind of people who are visible in the organization. So at LinkedIn, if we have something that has Jeff Weiner's photo, people know who he is and might resonate with that better than they would, to something that doesn't have a person. So test those images, use employees in your organization to kind of connect with the people you're trying to reach. You can also edit the title and the description that pulls in with your link. So test that messaging to see, what's going to get people to click. You can test the length of your copy. So as I mentioned, shorter is usually better. So test the length of it, see what is that right sweet spot for your content. And obviously the content itself. So maybe it's pulling out a quote from an ebook that you're promoting, or maybe it's pulling out a stat or something that's going to get people to want to learn more. So testing that actual messaging itself and finding out what's actually going to get the job done.
Awesome advice. All right, well, we're pretty much at the end of the session. Thank you again so much for joining us today. And do remember, a recording will be available and sent to you after the event. And we hope to see you soon.
Thanks, everyone.